Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching. This is my first tutorial with my voice, so it's going to be awkward for me, but that's okay. I hope it's not too annoying. So, yeah, welcome. I try to start a series of a topic which I'm really interested in, which is kind of like interactivity, and I want to combine it with the topic of graphic design. This is a disclaimer, I'm not the best graphic designer. I'm more interested in creating interactive systems. So the whole designing part is going to be on your side, which is probably the good part. So you still can do your style, apply your style, and be creative. And I'm just trying to give some inspiration for maybe a more interactive approach of graphic design. And yeah, so let's start. So what I want to do is today, it always helps to kind of like write it down because TouchDesigner has so many possibilities that it's easy to get lost. So it helps quite like writing down what you want to do. So the idea for today is move typography depending on the position of the mouse and change font also depending on the position of the mouse. I think that's a good start. To see. Oh. And then we can see how we make that go further. This is going to be quite simple and focused, yeah, as I said, on the interaction part. So how would we start? We could start first by getting the mouse position as an input. For that, we can do double click left and open the top section. No, that's wrong. We go to the chop section and then we can on the keyboard click hit M for mouse. Then we can take in the mouse in. And there you already see the values for the mouse. So TX is for the X position of the mouse and TY is for the Y position, pretty clear. If we now click P on the keyboard, we also can see what other values we can get. So for example, you could write in there mouse click to name the value, and then every time I click the mouse, this is the left mouse click, the value changes. That could be interesting, but we wouldn't try that. We first start with that. So if we want to say we want to dependent on the X and the Y position, differently change our design, we would first need to split them up so we can treat every channel by themselves. For that, we can do right click and take a select operator. With that, we have the option or we can under channel names pick which channel we want to use or manipulate or change. For that, we take TX. So this is the X position of the mouse on the screen. You see there's obviously not much happening if I go up and down, but left and right. So now let's say we want that depending on the X position of the mouse, text is positioned on different values that we set on the screen. So let's start with the texts. We can change the text by typing something in here. Hello. So now we can do different things. So the classic thing is we could manipulate or map more the X position of the text. I'm also gonna set a null at the end. This is good practice in TouchDesigner. And if you click on the blue dot here, which is for display, you can see it as a background. So one thing, which is a classic one, is like we could map the X position here in the translate field by referencing it. For that, we click on the view active flag and drag it with the left mouse into the translate field. So there you can see already, okay, this is kind of like mapped to the position. But what if we want to map the range to like 2 or 3 specific positions on the x-axis? For that, we have to kind of like map this value to a list or to a list of values that we like. For that, we can start with a table dat. What you would do is like double left click, go to the dat section and go to type in T for table, and there you have now a beautiful table. In that table, we can set different values that we want. For example, -3. And then we add a new row with right click, add row. 0, 1. And continue doing that. -1 and 0.3. So as we see, the translation in TouchDesigner is starts from 0, so it's dependent on the center. That's why I did like -0.3 to 0.3, so we have an effect from like up to down, left to right. I said left to right, so let's try that. So now what we would do is map this value to the range of these values. What we first have to do that, we have to convert this dat into a chop value. To do that, we go to the chop section, and if you click here with the right mouse on the output, you can go to chop, and then you see which operators you can connect to it. And in this case, it's dat2, which you can see down here. It's like dat to chop, which creates the conversion. Now we have like this, quite messy thing, which basically created one channel for each row, but we want that we have just one channel, and each of this is kind of like a sample value or is one value in that channel. For that, we first go to first column is value. So we have that this one is not just ignored or is seen as the names for the columns, it's a value. And now in the output, we decide not channel per row, we decide channel per column. So this makes one channel out of this whole column, and there you can see that 0.3 is the first, and it's right here 0.3, then it goes to 0.1, 0, 1, 0. So this is kind of like, these are all the values mapped on one channel. And now we have to kind of like look up which value we have to pick for what position. For that, we use the lookup job, which is again in the job section under lookup. There we drag it there, and it needs obviously another input. For that, what is it saying? It's saying not enough sources specified, so we need the source for this. And now this is kind of like mapped, as you can see, but instead of like, let's see what this does. We again, it's always good practice at the null at the end, so we can like do changes in the before, but we still have the reference to that parameter that we want to change. So again, an active sign, drag it with the left mouse onto translate. And there you could see it already is mapped kind of like from left to right on my screen to left to right in of that texture operator window, which is not bad, but I kind of like want actually not that it's interpolating in between. I want just like that it just can take these values. And for that, we can go into the lookup and deactivate the interpolate. So it kind of like looks at the position where we are and then just picks one of them. It's kind of like already nice. Maybe, as I said, it's not going to be my job. It's not going to be on the making it pretty side. It's more like on showing what interactions we could use to make a background. So this is like this checkerboard is like the transparent. It's kind of like showing that the background is transparent. But if we want like a black background, we can add here a transform at like a 1 on the alpha value. The rest are the RGB values for the color. You also can pick the color if you want to. And then you do comp over background color, and then we have a really nice, pretty green background and a beautiful font. So this is already kind of like behaving like we want it. I actually prefer to map it to the Y position, so it goes maybe from top to bottom. For that, we can take that expression or value, or it's an expression, but we can take that, cut it out, and then paste it in on the Y value. So now we see that, like, depending on the X position of the mouse, it moves up and down. We also could obviously, which maybe would be a little bit more intuitive, really use the Y position of the mouse. For that, it's quite easy. We either could just change the channel name, because we see here, if I move the mouse up, you see that the Y channel is moving. But what's interesting now is if you go from left to right, you see that the values go from 1 to -1. And if you go up and down, it just goes from, yeah, kind of like -0.5 to almost 0.5. Yeah. So we have to think about that to properly adjust that. Otherwise, yeah, we can see in a second what's happening. So I'm just changing the channel that I'm picking, and now you see that we never reach like the full value range, because there you see it's just going from minus here in the output. It's just going from -0.3 to 0, because this lookup expects a value range that comes in from kind of like 0 to 1. So we have to adapt that from -0.5 to 0.5. And now we see that we actually reached the values that we have. So it's kind of like looking, okay, what input range is coming in and then mapping it to the values of the other input source. So this is already kind of like a little bit more fun, up and down, up and down. So what can we do next? So next thing is we obviously can, for example, change the font depending on the X position of the mouse. Why not? For that, a good practice is, the problem is TouchDesigner needs quite some time to load the fonts. So it's not a good practice to just kind of like really complicate it, maybe with like giving it different names depending on the value. What I would do is just picking multiple text versions and then picking the fonts, and then you just switch between the different operators. So you map kind of like, here we can use the X position of the mouse. You map again to an index value that picks the different text operators. I think that is, in that case, the best. So first, let's start with maybe picking different fonts. Could be fun, no? Again, I'm just picking some arbitrary stuff. It's probably just similar. The wingdings and okay. How about this one doesn't work? Let's see. Yeah, it's a little boring, so let's see if I can get another one. Well, see, half of them doesn't work. Yeah, that's pretty. So yeah, I would just pick the different fonts here. And if you, for example, want to adjust the size, you either could do one thing, which is change the font sizes in here. Another way is to change the size of the scale the font up, but that's probably, first of all, I would kind of like, the problem is, the thing is that TouchDesigner has a default value for the resolution of 256, which is pretty bad. What we can do is raise it so we get definitely better quality. So I'll go with 1080 times 1080 and we'll do that for all the operators. So I pick all the operators with like shift. Now you can see. And then I go to the common tab and just type in 1080, 1080. And that should work. No, it doesn't. Why not? No, it's doing it. So that's pretty small. What we can do here is also, again, pick all of them with shift, then go to text. Is it text? Now we go to font and go to auto size font, auto fit always, and now we see already it's beautifully the right side, not the right, oh, it's like fitting into the size that we picked. And now what we want is we take the X position of the mouse and we map that value again to like a range of values that we want and that we write down in a table, convert that table into a lookup channel, and then we just set the switch value, the switch index to that. So what we do is we take, we can select the select operator, do Command C to copy it. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, there. And now we change the channel name to X. And as I said before, we see kind of like, okay, what is the range of the values? It's -1 and 1. So we go into, we're going to use another lookup. And now we create a different table with different lookup values. What we also can do, yeah, because we know how many inputs we have. It's kind of like makes more sense actually to do something else. We don't need a table because we know we need to map -1 to 1 to the index of the switch. So as you can see here, it's like here you see the index values. So it starts with 0, 1, 2, 3. So we want to map -1 to 1 to 0 to 3. So what we can do is actually we take a pattern. With pattern, we can have like already like kind of like pre-made set of curves like sine, cosine, triangle, and for our case, we can take a ramp, which goes from 0 to 1. But we want to go from 0 to 3. So we would change the amplitude to 3. And there you could see, no, you can't see, but it's going like, yeah, from this is 2, so that's going to be 3. This is the peak. And let's try to put this in. Yeah, that's okay. There we go. So yeah, we see already it's going from 0 to 3 here in the lookup. But what it's going to do, I mean, yeah, first I would do a null again. So if we want to do changes later, but what we first can do is again, we drag that value into the index with left mouse, pick a chop reference, and there we already see, okay, it is going from 0 to 3, but you see like, yeah, same behavior happens. It's like in between because it's going for indexes just with a whole number. It just picks like, yeah, on 0 it picks the first text 2, on 1 to 2 it picks text 3, and so on. What's interesting is it's a funny mapping, which I think is, did I copy the lookup? No, I didn't. Yeah, exactly. There we see again the problem. So we're going from -1 to 1, and it is like funnily, yeah, you can see how if I'm going from left to the center, it goes from 0 to 3 and starts from 0 again. So we need to change the index range from -1 to 1. And I think now we solved that problem. Yeah, beautiful. We already have like on the mouse position, on the Y position, we are going through the fonts, and if we go up and down, we have this beautiful thing. So what else could we change? What would be interesting to change is obviously to change the text on each line. So if I'm like on the top, I have a different text. If I'm over the top and move my mouse, I can kind of like change the text. And then if I go down, another text is coming. So what we would do is we would also map the Y position of the mouse with different text for the text elements. So we kind of like do the table approach. So let's do a new table, write some pretty text here like hello. Then to add a new row, right click, go in row. How are you? And what else? Right, thanks. And something else. All right. So yeah, now we want to pick, depending on the X position, we want to pick a different yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's another problem. We never reached the last one. I'm going to do that. Yeah, first we do that. So we want to pick the text depending on the X position. For that, what we do is we select a row depending on the mapped position here. So what we would do is we do right click, go to the select operator, take this, and then we can select a specific row by the index. And what we want to do is to map the current index that we used here to the row that we picked there. So we can like go left click here, copy this, and then go to start row index. You want to set start and end row index to kind of like be the same. So it doesn't expand, it just picks that one row. So what we see is now it changes depending on the mouse position. We have one thing to fix here because the problem is what I did. If I do the range or the amplitude to 3, it never reaches the 3 as a value, which we can see here. It's like going to 2.9999, but we want to kind of like make it to yeah, also stay at like a certain area. It should be in 3. So the quick and dirty trick is just to expand this to 4. And now we have, yeah, it's not really noticeable, but the problem is what we can do is we can change the order on which operator comes when. For that, we just go to the parameter window here and just, for example, click the arrow with the left mouse. Now we moved text, we moved that up in the order, but we want to get more contrast between this. We do move it up one more, and now we can see we have like the fat one, and then we have the thinner one, then we have wingdings, and then we have another one at the end, which helps also is, as you can see here, is like the ropes also show the order. So it's just helpful to reorganize this so you kind of like see this, yeah, like that. Beautiful. Okay, now you know which and what order they're going to be shown. Ah, yeah, and now basically for the last part, we reference again the new text. So what you would do is like you click on the operator, P on the keyboard to have the parameter field again, and then we actually can do that for all of them. So we again with Shift pick all of them, then we go to text. Well, we also could do that like that. Interesting. Yeah, there are two different ways. That's the thing in TouchDesigner. There was 1,000 ways. Which way we should do. So I can show you both. So I picked that way that I used the select before to pick which text I want, and then I assign to the text parameter basically this null. What I would do is I drag it in there so it makes already the reference. And then I need to say which column or row I want. For that, you do like the brackets. No, not these brackets, the square brackets. Oh, Mac. There are these ones. And set 0.0. And we have that. So the problem here is we reach a 4 as a value really at the end. What you want to do is set -1, because our value range is just from 0 to 3. So now what we have is, if I'm at the top, I have hello in different, no, exactly. So now we can see we're mapping the X position, the text to the X position. That doesn't work. Nah, yeah. Okey-dokey. Now what I want is actually, I don't want to map it to the X position. I want to map to the Y position. So if I move down with the mouse, also the text is changing. That's kind of like more intuitive. So what I would do is something, I would take again the Y operator and make a branch of it with like middle mouse and take a mask, because with the mask chop we can make it a bit more how we want it. What we're going to do is we map the input range again to the value range that we want. For that, we set the null. So what value range do we have in there? We have like 0.5 to -0.5 more or less. So from range 0.5 to -0.5. And then we want to go to from 0 to try from 0 to 3. So what we now then we can map this new value again here to both of them. And now we have exactly, hello, how are you? I'm great, thanks. How are you? And depending on the mouse. Beautiful, no? Yeah, this is, I think, for today, that's my first tutorial, so excuse me for being a little bit, I don't know, chaotic. But yeah, I think this is the basic principle what we wanted to do. and there's obviously a lot of ways to play with it. Let me know if you have any questions or adaptations. I hope that was all clear. If not, just write me and let me know. Have a great day.